call this budget meeting to order. Want to read something here, and then we'll go over kind of the bottom line of where we're at. I just passed this along to you guys. Everybody out there does not have this copy. We've had exhaustive discussions about the budget, particularly the impact of the 12% rate of increase on our pension contribution. I've talked with several state legislators, folks at the state auditor's office, and folks at DLG in an attempt to get a better understanding of what, if any, action will be taken to change course on the pension fund. All these discussions have generally led to more questions than answers, but one thing I have received clarification on is the actuarially accrued liability contribution, often referred to as the actuarially determined contribution, is altogether different from our unfunded liability. Now, before I read the rest of this, let me explain that to you guys. This whole pension situation, and you can go on the state auditor's website, and over on the right-hand side, there's a link that says pension audit. Every entity that is involved in any facet of the state retirement, based on the information that we submit to Frankfurt, it's our information. They take it, and they have determined what our unfunded liability is. All right? So to look at ours, ours is kind of an odd thing, because we've got under non-hazardous, we've got Simpson County Fiscal Court, and we've got Simpson County Soil Conservation. Under hazardous duty, there'll be a line that says Simpson County Fiscal Court. Now, we're also obligated to make whatever payments the Barren River District Health Department sends us. They send us a note and it says, here's what we need you to fund us this year. And so the whole pension thing for the whole district is just one number. And so that's going to have to be determined on how that goes. And we'll actually have a meeting Monday where we're going to take up that discussion. But here's where our unfunded liability currently is, about $9.6 million. Okay? Now, the Barren River District Health Department, their unfunded liability is about $54 million right now. And so the situation at the health department is this. Well, the unfunded, let me get back to this. Your accrued liability contribution and your unfunded liability, the only thing that I have really received any clarification on was this. And I'll tell you exactly how Senator Gibbons told this to me 2 days ago. You take that $9.6 million unfunded liability. He said if you had a benefactor walk in, write out a check for that $9.6 million, that has absolutely no impact or effect whatsoever on your contribution rate. Your contribution rate will continue at that level of increase through 2028. So they have a actuarially accrued liability that we should be paying over that 10-year piece of legislation. At some point, they're going to figure out how are they going to receive this unfunded liability from us also. So bear in mind that none of the numbers you're going to see here today have nothing about that $9.6 million in unfunded liability is in any of the numbers we're looking at. And I would have printed that off for you to look at, but when you print it, the print is so small you can't read it. And I tried enlarging it and zooming in, but when you zoom it in enough to get it big enough to print where you can read it, you only get like 2 columns on a page.
Maybe it made more sense to read it that way.
Well, it felt better reading it that way. But if you want to see it, I mean, all you got to do is you go into a Google search engine and just Google Kentucky State Auditor, and it'll take you to the link to the state auditor's website. And when you pull up that page, over on the left-hand column, there's a link that says pension audit. You click on that pension audit, and it's all right there. Now, so because I think there's been some confusion about what we're actually facing, so I wanted to include this today. According to KRS 61.565, there is only one thing we know for sure, and that is to expect the increase to our actuarially accrued liability to run through June 30th, 2028. That is the only active legislation as it pertains to the CERS pension funding, and it will remain the law that we must adhere to until or unless a change is made. In all of my communication with the folks at the state level, there is absolutely no indication that anything will be changing. Now, you've got a copy here. It's 61.565, the KRS statute. If you flip it over to the next page, paragraph 5, and I know all of y'all can read, but it makes me feel good to read this out loud. It says there, notwithstanding any other provision of KRS Chapter 61 or 78 to the contrary, the employer contribution established by the Board of the County Employees Retirement System that are payable on or after July 1, 2018, which was the beginning date, and until June 30th of 2028, which is the end date, for the pension and health insurance funds, including the normal cost contribution and the actuarially accrued liability contribution for each fund, shall not increase by more than 12% in terms of projected dollars paid by participating employers over the prior fiscal year as determined by the system's consulting actuary. So basically, I mean, it means exactly what I've been saying to you guys. From July 1 of 2018 till June 30th of 2028, we're going to see this increase. And there's no way around it. So I just want to share a few things with you, and then I'm going to ask you a question, and that's where we're going to go from here, because I do not want to be in here all afternoon. You'll see, you've got, and everybody I guess has found those, there's copies up there. You guys see this paper right here?
Yeah.
And this one has got less ink marks on it, but I had Nicole run our occupational tax and property tax out through 2028 based on the typical natural growth. So you'll see those numbers, and in red, you'll see how they increase year over year. But the biggest kicker is that when you compare that 10-year period to what the rate was in 17-18, which that number, that $759,000 that we paid in fiscal year 17-18 is essentially the dollar amount that had been paid for the last several years. So had we been able to continue to pay at that dollar level, it's not hard to figure out. You would have paid a little over $7.5 million in 10 years. But if you add up what we will expect to pay on this 12% increase year over year, it will be an increase of $9 million over that KRS 65 that we just read about. Then when you look at the occupational and property tax during that same 10-year period, the two of those together increase a little over $3.5 million. So there's about $5.5 million difference between what your revenue is going to grow and what your expenses are going to be just on the pension number alone. So now you have a sheet that looks like this. You have two sheets that look like this. Your top sheet assumes that there is no occupational tax rate increase, meaning that we just leave everything just like it is today. We don't touch it, we don't do anything with it. If you look at the bottom, the very bottom line, that's the one, because all of the retirement numbers that you see in here are just exactly like in this other chart that you've got. But this was what needs to be looked at. When you look down at the very bottom line where you've got fund balance, projected change in the fund balance, and an ending fund balance, we're looking at if at the end of this fiscal year, if we have $2.2 million left in cash. It's typically about $2 million. It'll be give or take a couple $100,000. So I used on the high side $2.2 million. This budget sheet that you see right here, that you got a copy of this, what's plugged into that budget right now is everything that you guys that we've discussed in the 3 previous sessions, pulling out and plugging in what everyone has said we feel good about, When we do that, that $410,000 in parentheses is the number that we've got to come up to balance that budget. Now granted, $180,000 of that will be the fire truck, but there's still $230,000 right there. So if you look at that, and that $230,000, I just want to make sure that everybody understands this. And if while I'm talking, if you have a question, say, hey, wait a minute, explain this to me. If we decide to pull that money and take this whole $410,000 out of the cash reserve, and we roll over into the next fiscal year, and we decide to do the same thing again, that $230,000 is regular, normal operating expense. It's not a one-time capital expenditure. That's an expense that you're going to have to carry over. And I thought about this a little bit too. That $230,000, if we look at back from last year's budget and what it took to balance that budget, well, here's two things we're dealing with in this current budget cycle that wasn't there last year. We're looking at an increase of $19,000 in pension contribution, and we lost $144,000 in occupational tax revenue with the closing of Harmon and Quad Graphics. So it doesn't take long, or it's not hard to figure out how come that number is different from last year. But if we don't do anything and we roll that over and we pull that $410,000 out, you're looking at starting the next fiscal year with a balance of about $1,790. Then you're going to have to pull $312,000 out that following year, and how you arrive at that number is you're carrying over the $230,000 expense that you're paying out of cash reserve now, plus you're adding in the additional, and the add in here is only for the pension liability for the next fiscal year. You can look at, if you look on your sheet, you go back to the one with the red marks on it, it's easier to see. If you go back and you look at the 2021, that red number where it shows up, it is up $132,000 over the fiscal year that we're working on the budget for. So that would roll over. You got your 230 you're carrying over, plus your 132, that increases. So you're really at 360. So you say, how is that at 312? That's because if you look at your increases, your natural increases in occupational tax and property tax, we're calculating every single dollar of that increase in on covering nothing but the pension. So you're at 312,000 carrying over. The point being to this, if that's the way we operate, you can see come fiscal year 23-24, when we get to the ending fund balance for that fiscal year, we will be $119,000 in the negative.
Thanks. I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, sir.
The property tax increase.
No property tax increase.
Excuse me. What I meant to say was the property evaluation. You've got right here, at what, 3.5%? That's a trend?
That has been the trend over the past several years.
Okay. But
and while you...
I was saying like this year.
Yeah.
This year, I think they're going to end up maybe $40,000-$50,000 more dollars in property tax evaluation over than what they budgeted for last year.
We may. We've not been given.
But these numbers here is based on 3.5%.
Yes, and here's the thing, right, too, and here's the thing, too, Myron, if you're looking at, Nicole looked back like over the last 8 years to see kind of what it was traditionally. So if you're going to look through the 10-year time frame of this KRS 65, you may see some spikes in property, but you may see some lows, too. So
but we've got a recession in some of these numbers. We're coming out of a recession now. Of course, Simpson County, like a lot of counties, we're at a high right now.
We are, but we won't stay at a high for the next 8 or 9 years.
That's exactly right.
So you just kind of got to look at how that levelizes out over the time.
So what we're estimating for property tax revenue could bear.
Could bear. Yeah. But now but understand also too, for the property tax number to be a significantly higher number, you're either gonna have to experience tremendous growth, or we're gonna have a hearing and really raise the rate up. I mean,
Well, I don't know about the city, but the county, just for 19, they're being assessed, reevaluated as we speak.
I'm sure.
And could be some significant increases of property value. Could be. We won't know that until tax bills go out, but it could be.
You could be. But do you know for every $1 million of assessment, how much actual dollars that means to us?
I don't know what that is.
Well, hang on just a second.
But my point being is, we're working off a 3.5% increase or an average.
For every $1 million, you gain $1,050 in property tax.
But there's been, in 18, and of course, in 19, if it's been after January 1st, am I right about that, or it won't be on 19's tax.
True, that's true.
So what I'm saying is, we have went through a lot of growth in a year or two. We've had a lot of growth in Central County. Now, I don't know if that's all filtered back in through our tax collect, that I don't know. But,
Yeah, I don't know,
I mean, like the library, you know, they're anticipating $65,000 more of revenue this year. And that's based on tax assessments. They budgeted $65,000 extra revenue.
ew, that may be tough for you.
And I think,
Because you're talking about having to have assessments. I mean, you're getting $1,000 for every $1 million. So
I'm just telling you what they budget, that's in their budget. So,
that's going to be tough.
and I think this year, when we finish in June, if it's still trending, we're going to be about $50,000 more in property tax than what the past fiscal report had estimated.
And I mean, if we are 50,000 ahead, that's great, but it doesn't really put a dent in what this does. It doesn't put a dent in where we're at.
Well, it might put, it all helps.
Everything will help. Everything will help. But yes. But if you look over on, if you go to that next page, or you look at what happens if you do implement a 0.25% occupational tax rate increase, go back down to that fund balance, your projected change in fund balance and your ending fund balance. You start with the 2.2, and rather than having to pull 410 from reserves, you're actually surplusing about 350,000. Now you follow your increase, it goes up to the next year at 2.5 million, and you're actually seeing some surplus along all the way out till you get to fiscal year 25-26, and then you go negative again. And that's with a 0.25% occupational tax increase.
You've left out the $390,000 for the jail that'll be paid off.
Well, that's a very good point. And here's another thing that we need to be thinking about if we're going to look at long-term planning. You're going to have the jail paid off. We got, the clerk asked me the other day, what are we going to do with my building? And my answer to her is, it depends on what we do with this budget. We may not do anything with her building. But at some point, that building and other facilities, I mean, the county, Bill tells me that the newest or most up-to-date facility we have is the Bradford building over here, correct? I mean, you're trying to maintain property and have buildings to operate services in. And it's a very, very good possibility that we get right out of that bond payment and have to do something to accommodate the clerk's office. I don't know what that will be. But I'm telling you that getting out of that bond payment will not completely free up that entire $380,000 if we choose to maintain our facilities and our property in an accurate manner. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not wanting to put anyone on the spot, but my understanding is that first off, not only is the clerk's building in a very bad state of repair, just about to capacity anyway. So I mean,
That's kind of embarrassing too, for the last month, we've had construction cones just sitting in the lobby, I mean.
yeah.
that's all.
And I know this is not a good language, and honestly, we're recording this session today. So I know this is gonna be tough, and probably somebody's gonna call me and say, really, are you serious? I mean, what we're kind of facing is just trying to get a Band-Aid on the clerk's bill until we do get that bond paid off, and figure out what we can do from there. Because we're not in any shape, especially if we sit here and choose to do nothing today, we're not in any shape to dump a couple $100,000 into the clerk's building. And I mean, me personally, even if we were in a shape to dump a couple $100,000 into that building, I don't know that it's smart to do it when she's just about to capacity anyway. I mean, I understand your point, but I mean, you see what I'm saying? All right. So that's what, so you,
Pay off next year, I just want everybody to know.
do what?
The jail does not pay off next year.
I didn't
know
say
it's
that.
been noted out there, it's like 22 or 23 when it pays out.
23.
Yeah, I think it's the first of 23, like March of 23 or something like that. Spring of 23, what, I don't know.
We'll go with that.
Yeah, roughly. But I mean, my point being, even if you decide to take the occupational tax rate, dealing with this KRS 65 doesn't get us out of the woods. And everybody, I mean, everywhere I go, everybody has asked me, some of you guys have asked me, what do you think the state is going to do? I have no idea what the state is going to do. I've talked to David Givens, I've talked to Representative Stone, I've talked to Representative Michael Meredith, I've talked to several state legislators, been on the phone with the folks at the auditor's office, had email communications with folks at DLG. I have no idea what they're going to do. I can tell you this. Senator Givens, when he called me 2 days ago, he was going to Frankfurt because he was in a leadership meeting yesterday, and I said, Senator, if in that leadership meeting you get any indication of what may happen with this special session, or if there will be any discussion about the way that we're having to fund the pension right now, our local governments, if you get any indication out of that leadership meeting, will you please let me know? And he said, I absolutely will. You know what I heard from him?
I'm sure you did get a call.
I did not get a call. So, I mean, so everybody's asking me, is there any, no, I have no idea what Frankfurt's going to do. I know what's in front of us right now. I know what we're facing over the next several years. You guys, everyone know what I believe should be done. And I want to say this, I do want to say this. What I have suggested that we do, personally, I do not like. During my 8 years while I was a city commissioner, I absolutely voted to do things that I personally did not like. But I've done so because I felt like that it was in the best interest of this community. I personally do not like what I've suggested here, but I absolutely believe that it's in the best interest of this community if we're going to get through this. I don't know. Is the state going to change? I don't know. So here's the situation and where we're at today. Tuesday, we have a court meeting. We have a budget projection right here that has all the things that you guys have said, okay. It does not reflect that occupational tax increase. It was pulled out. We got to figure out $410,000. 180 of that's the fire truck. I still say that if we're going to get through this and make it, because we start backing up, even with the rate increase, we start backing up somewhere in fiscal year 25, 26. We start backing up again. We start going the negative direction again. So am I hoping that the state does something? Heck yes, even if we do this increase, I hope the state, well, here's the thing, Myron, here's the thing. They don't have to. I mean, should they? Do they need to? Do I hope they do? Heck yes.
Yeah, you know, they contributed to the biggest majority of this problem.
Look,
And this is a Band-Aid, what we're doing right now.
I'm not here to argue that with you. I'm in complete agreement with you on that. But I'm telling you, they don't have to do anything. They could just sit on their hands and say, hey, we've done what we know to
They're pushing it down
do.
every county, what they're doing. They're pushing it.
But I mean, people are asking me, coming and asking me, what do you think they're gonna do? I have no idea. I mean, even the ones I talk to have no idea what they're gonna do.
I probably would count on this.
Huh?
I probably would count on that.
That's exactly what that's why I've made the suggestion I made. So here's where we're at today. We were ready to have a budget reading at our last meeting. We have no choice but to have one at the next meeting. So we got three options today. And this is gonna be on you guys, because my suggestion still is the same that it's always been. I don't like it, but I think that's what needs to happen if we're gonna make it through this. But the question today is, we've got to determine, coming out of here today, what the majority of this court will vote to accept as a budget ordinance come Tuesday. And we've got three options. We either make the increase, we either cut the $230,000 out, or we just pull the whole $410,000 out of our reserve and kick the can down the road another year.
Good.
Yes, sir?
Just a quick comment. To what Myron said, Myron, I'm not different with you about them putting it on the county. Remember, there's lots of retirement systems. Y'all are concerned about the county retirement system. The state's got its own retirement system, because I'm part of it.
Yeah.
Their rates are the very same rates that y'all are seeing for the county, and they're having to figure how they're gonna pay for that. If you notice, no, they didn't pass something last year, they just kind of kept what was in there. But they did do some rate changes. You know, I know if somebody comes to work on my air conditioner unit, I'm paying 6% I wasn't paying until last year. So they had to consider some revenue sources to address the portion that they're having to pay for state police retirement, state retirement. So yeah, they're kicking it to the county for the county's retirement system. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, when they're wrestling with it, they're not wrestling with it on the end for the counties. Counties are kind of on their own. They're wrestling on the end of what they're going to do for their system. And the biggest one you hear about is the teachers, because they're the most voiced in it. But you got lots of people out there. Just food.
That's a heck of a good point, Sheriff. And the other thing is too, the whole special session they keep talking about. The new executive director to the Barren River District Health Department was in my office yesterday visiting, and we have a district board meeting Monday night. He said he talked to Steve Sheldon. He told me when he was in yesterday, it was about 2 weeks ago, and I guess Steve Sheldon, he's a representative, and he just got elected as representative. Representative Sheldon had told him that he was very hopeful they would have a special session to address that. But he said that was 2 weeks ago. He said now the news is that it doesn't really look like a special session is even going to happen. As I told you earlier, I asked Senator Gibbons to give me a call and let me know. I didn't hear anything from him. So my assumption is that nothing's really going to happen there either. I don't know. But here's the reality of what happens with the health department. If they do not have a special session, or they have a special session and they don't do anything, the contribution rate for those health departments and other quasis are going to go from 49% to 84%. And here's the thing, and I don't know, Nicole, it's a good thing you got here, because this is a question just for you. We get a letter every year that says, here's what you owe to cover the health department. We haven't gotten that letter this year, right?
And that's when I called.
Yeah.
We hadn't received it.
Yeah, we have not received it. Here's the other thing. We may not receive it till, it could be the very last minute before we receive it, because we may not know until sometime late in June whether or not they're even going to have a special session. If they don't, and that rate goes from 49 to 84, do you think the people that's on that district board, I mean, they don't have the money to cover that type of increase. What they're gonna be doing is saying, all right, Simpson County, here's how much more the employees in your health department are gonna cost. Here's how much we need from you. We may not know that till mid-June. I don't know.
That's one reason why we had that in
All right.
local meetings, is because.
So anyway, you've heard what I've said, you've heard where I'm at. I need to know from you guys, what do you want to do?
Nicole, that TVA in lieu of taxes I thought it was going to increase every year.
Well, I mean, as far as I know, it's going to, but now we did check it. It's going to be that first payment, which I'm not sure what the industrial court is getting it, but that it's going straight to them.
Okay.
Yeah, it
But
goes,
we did verify that first payment's only going to be about $55,000.
Well, am I looking at this? Because I see 29,000 on here.
Well, we do get money from the TVA, but that is not what that is.
Okay, and which line item is that?
Well,
I'm trying
TVA
to,
is 4203A, but that's our normal contribution that they send to us every year, which we will still get that.
okay.
But
Well,
now-
where is the other one
The
at?
other, not too long ago in this fiscal year, I think you talked to Richie, and we found out that that wasn't coming to us. It was going straight.
it goes straight to the industrial
Because it
authority.
was meant for economic development anyways.
Okay,
So we,
And so they had to get everything set up to make sure that they were their banking able to receive that. So it's going straight to them, it won't hit us at all.
which validates my argument even more for changing that tax split, or that occupational tax split.
I'm not opposed to that, but I mean, you had that in one of your things, but I mean, you're talking about $50,000. Which I'm not knocking that, the way I'm not knocking what Myron's saying, but that doesn't get us where we're gonna have to be.
Well, and I know I'm going to be accused of picking on him, and that's fine, but we asked, the jail, if they didn't replace that one employee, that could be 60,000
We,
easily, and they're getting 25 from the city they wouldn't get. So if we take that, they're getting $185,000 more this budget than last budget.
and that money that the city agreed to was plugged in, when you handed this paper in that talked about the things that you would like to see happen, that jail employee and Jolene's employee both were already factored out of there. They were already factored out in the number,
It couldn't have been factored out because they've increased their employee, jail personnel from $1,479 to $1,508. So how is it going factored out if they increase it?
do what now?
Last year's budget was $1,479 for jail personnel. This year's budget is $1,508.
Does that 1,479 include the increase, the 1.5% or 2% increase?
No. See, there is an increase figured in, a salary increase here, not a personnel increase, salary increase.
I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
we're talking about making tough decisions.
Yeah.
Cuts, that's the kind of decisions we have to
So are you
make.
saying, Marty, are you saying all the jail employees don't get a raise and everybody else in the county does? Is that what I just heard?
No, sir.
That's what it just sounded like.
But my point being, Marty, when you asked for one jail, we done, that employee was factored out of this number already. The clerk's employee was already factored out of that number. The whole situation with the tourism, while I have no problem with that, statutorily, we can't take that money and fund the chamber. I mean, that transient room tax has to be used for tourism purposes only. I mean, there's statutory obligations to that. And bear in mind too, this $410,000 I'm talking about has plugged in the change that we talked about in the last meeting on the 911. That change is in here.
So, get back to Marty, of course, all county employees did receive a 1.5% raise effective first of this year, 19. In this budget right here, there's a 2% increase for all employees, with the exception of deputy jailers, deputy sheriffs, and firefighters, they got another 1%. So in a year, the whole calendar year, or not calendar year, but Party county employees got a 3.5% raise, and part of them will get a 4.5% raise. If you look at it, when you back it up, they got a raise first pay period this year.
Yeah, but
So
when they got that raise mid-year or whatever,
they got it in December.
yeah, when they got that raise, and I say mid-year, it's mid-fiscal year. How long had it been since the employees had even really
I
gotten a
have
raise?
no idea, probably way too long, but I don't know, I have no idea. What I'm saying is that right there is we're tracking some of these numbers up.
Do what?
When we say our personnel expenses.
I don't think we got one last year.
They didn't, there was no raise the year before. Now, keep in mind, I'm speaking on the sheriff's office now, these guys can speak for there. My funding mechanism is on a different time frame than what I said, I'm on a calendar year.
Right.
So, I didn't give a 1.5%, but I gave one to my girls that were working out front, and that was it. Nobody else got anything. Because last year, they're like, sacrifice for a year, because we're gonna figure this out this year, we're gonna have an answer. That's what I was told. And I know things are big, and you can't always figure things out. That's what I said. So they got nothing that year. The fact that fiscal court said you can have a fiscal court did not change my budget to put money in there to do that. And so I couldn't do it. My new budget would reflect that, right? The one that y'all approved in January, but doesn't officially kick in until July. So I'm running off figures. This next year, I'm going to do something different with figures because it's confusing for you guys. It's very confusing for me. It's very confusing for Nicole. So, you know, my deputy's line item last year, I had to wait because there's enough in there to pay them for a year. 6 months before, actually, almost, yeah, a year before they said that was when I was presenting a budget that didn't have that 1% in there because fiscal court asked me, don't put anything in there. There were some adjustments in officers' pay through the year, but I'd already adjusted those in. Because with police officers, and every place is different. A new officer, I've got guys getting ready to go to the academy at $12 an hour. When they get out of the academy, they're going to $14 an hour. Those structures are built in, and when they hit them, they're there, and that's what I figure in. But as far as just going to the rate, courthouse guys didn't get any raise, so they hadn't had a raise in July. When that new budget comes out, it's going to be the first time they get anything.
And honestly, Myron,
But what I'm saying is, those inflated numbers depicts a 2% raise. Well,
yeah.
tomorrow, I mean,
And-
of course, it affects retirement, it affects.
It does,
affects a lot of
it does, but here's the thing that's embarrassing to me, and I'll say it. It's embarrassing to me that these guys get out of the academy and we put a gun belt on them and a bulletproof vest on them and put them in a car and say, we want you to go serve and protect our community for $14 an hour.
Ridiculous.
It's embarrassing to me.
Well, I've been sheriff for 6 years. We have gradually tried to increase because it would have bankrupted us, honestly, to try to do it all at once. So we have tried to move their pay up a little bit every year, okay? It's gotten a lot better than it used to be. When you get to somebody that's got 10 years on, 15 years on, if you want to know exactly where you're at to the state median for a police officer's salary or a sheriff's office, they're about $4,000 off a month. That's statewide. You go to someplace like Warren County, we're not even close. You can pick places we're not even close to, but if you want state median, that's taking all the eastern Kentucky counties, because I've got a survey that came out, and it shows what they are, okay? And keep in mind, the rate you're hearing, there's a thing called clef that we get.
Yeah.
Clef is paid into their pay. So if I tell you somebody's making $12 an hour, the county's paying $10 an hour.
Right.
The other two is coming from clef that y'all are paying. It comes in on our revenue side, it's handed to fiscal court, and it goes out.
You're talking about total dollars paid to the officer, and I understand.
So I'm not making this by officer pay, I just want to make sure it's.
I don't have any problem about the raises
Yeah.
whatsoever.
And keep in mind, and this is the last time I'll ever say it, because I'll bring it back up to you, because there'll come a day when I'll go, remember, 4 to 5 of my personnel, we're not paying any benefits on.
Right.
It's saving you about $150,000, $200,000 a year. And that's gravy train, that's all good when we're saving it. But when they leave, I can't say it's gonna be replaced with somebody that doesn't have benefits. So I can tell you, these retired people that came back, they're not gonna be here 10 years from now. I can tell you their longevity is not gonna be that.
And back, so
So just
gentlemen,
keep that in mind.
here, the paper I handed you here, this was something I put together. This has been probably into the second session, but I didn't share it because we sat in here and every one of you looked at me and said, well, we're not gonna make the cuts, so there was no need in talking about this. But if you wanna talk about cuts, I've got, which was in the one budget that I put together, but we never even looked at it, was bringing jail personnel down, eliminating the custodial contract and having inmate labor do that, taking the fire department's rescue line completely out, asking the employees to make health insurance contributions, eliminating United Way, Hope Harbor, money cutting out of the tourism commission for collection fees, money for the county fair that's in the budget, cutting that out, Renaissance out, Good Samaritan out, senior citizen program out, cutting $16,000 out of the Boys and Girls Club, cutting $7,000 out of the African American Heritage, cutting $2,500 out of the Bicentennial, cutting $11,500 out of the Soil Conservation, cutting the Air Evac program out, doing away with the county clerk janitorial, cutting out the Human Rights Commission funding, the Medical Center trail funding, cutting magistrate expense allowance, county clerk expense allowance, cutting $10,000 to the park, only comes up to $191,000. My point being to that, I don't think it's prudent, I think it's ridiculous, but if you want to start talking about what are we going to cut, that's where we're going to cut, and it also looked like not giving any employee raises at all. So I want to go back to the question at hand is this. We have a budget here where we've discussed, do you want to make the cuts? And y'all all said no, and we plugged in other numbers. We got $410,000. You see right here, I mean, you see according to KRS legislation, what the rate's going to do through June 30th, 2028. You see on this sheet right here, these two sheets right here, whether you make the rate change or you don't make the rate change, where we're at. And here's the thing, bear in mind, this is only dealing with the pension alone. This isn't even factoring in any other cost. But it is factoring in our two biggest revenue producers. So the question is, do we make the rate change? Do we try to make the cuts? Or do you guys, does the majority of the court just want to pull this $410,000 out of the reserve and roll on and see what happens next year? And we have got to have a solid majority consensus when we leave this room today, because we have to have a budget ordinance put together for Tuesday. And you guys all know exactly where I stand on this, and it's like I said before, I don't like what I'm suggesting, I just think it's in our best interest. But whatever the majority of these 5 gentlemen say is the route we'll go. But we've talked it and talked it and talked it and beat it to death. We got to figure out what we're going to do and get it together and do it by Tuesday.
Mason, with those 2 industry things leaving, is there any talk of any other industry coming in?
Well, there are people that are in the talks, but I mean, there's nothing firm. I mean, for me to tell you, hey, we're going to have somebody in that building come July and they're going to employ 100 people, I can't tell you that today.
Some of the aquatic matters people have already been found.
Right.
So,
Well, and bear in mind
I
too.
don't know how many.
Yeah, but bear in mind too, if there's 2 industrial parks and 2 facilities that if they go get a job as far as collection for us, we're either getting no money or very little money.
That's gonna be other discussion somewhere down the road.
Right, but I mean, my point being, if every one of those employees went and got a job at other industry, the likelihood is they're gonna get employment at an industry that we're really not getting much revenue from right this minute. Believe me, I know this is a tough decision. It's kept me awake several nights for the last 3 months. But we're
I'm
at,
just gonna tell you what, I have to be honest with you, the bulk of the people I talk to doesn't care, period, doesn't care.
right,
The ones that do care, this budget right here will produce, this budget will produce some surplus money.
till 2026.
Right.
Till 2020, and here's the thing, if we go that route, and we do produce any surplus money, and we don't watch what we're doing with it, we won't make it till 2026.
Projection shows that.
Yeah.
There's no brainer there. But I don't know if we'll get a new governor this year or not, that I don't know.
But here's what we do know, I mean, I'm not trying to interrupt you, but here's what we do know. We will not get a new Senate or House because none of those seats are up for re-election.
They are in 2020.
Very true,
And then we're still just kicking the can down the road
exactly,
for another year.
But
yeah.
I think we all get it, I mean, the counties, any county in Kentucky is not gonna be able to work through this.
And
That's something else.
I don't think that if he will, he'll hunt me down at the next meeting we're together. And I hope Scott don't mind me sharing this, that what you told me about running into Dennis. So the judge in Allen County, do you mind me telling this story? Scott run into the judge at Allen County and asked him, Judge, what are y'all gonna do? He said, well, we're not gonna do anything this year. And I was like, whoa. But then I got to thinking about something, and I can pull it out, I got all of them stuck in here. They have a tax line for the health department in Allen County. They have a tax line for the soil conservation in Allen County. And they didn't fund the 911 at all. The city of the city of Scottsville funds it. But so here, and they do have an ambulance tax and a extension office tax and a library tax, just like we do. But we don't have the health department and soil conservation tax like they do. So if you take our fiscal court tax rate, okay, and you take Allen County fiscal court tax rate, plus the health department tax rate, plus the soil conservation tax rate, they're collecting about 7 cents per $100 more than we're collecting. If we were collecting another 7 cents per $100 or $700,000, we wouldn't have to do anything. We wouldn't be having this discussion either. I mean, so when you say, this county or that county, what they're doing, you got to factor in what have they done to be ahead? What are they doing to get ahead? And what are we comparing? Are we comparing apples to apples, or are we comparing apples and oranges?
Well, you're either gonna be proactive or reactive. So you're either gonna have to get ahead of it and add something, or when you get so far behind, and then we can't give raises, and we can't buy a car if we need it, or whatever.
This is another good point right there, Scott. Something we've not even talked about is we do, if the sheriff says we need a car, and he done got up and left, we didn't make him mad, did we? Okay.
He may want to buy a car.
He may want to buy a car. Typically he'll get them, but we're not really on what I would call a fleet maintenance program. We've not implemented something to be, let's get ourselves in a situation where we're good year in, year out down the road. So, but anyway, I'm sorry, but go ahead.
No, I mean, and I've been kicking this around a little bit, I believe your numbers, they're numbers, they don't lie. If we could get by with maybe just doing like a point 10 and generating enough money to get us by. I'm not saying that we won't have to eventually do the other
and hey,
and get us through,
Hey, I get what you're saying. I absolutely get it. But honestly, I don't know that 0.1%, I mean, you see what a quarter's gonna do by 2026.
I see that. And I'm not saying we wouldn't have to,
Yeah.
but you still have a little in your back pocket that you can pull from, but I get.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, let me tell you something to think about on that. And I get where you're at, I understand your thought process there. But if we done it that way, we're still gonna have to do something again. And it's gonna be worse to do it 2 times quickly than it is to do it once and be done. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I can see that.
When's the last time the occupancy tax has been increased?
Well, to my knowledge, the occupational tax was implemented in 2003 at 0.75%, and it has not been increased since that time,
2003,
2003.
16 years ago.
Yes,
Things have gone up tremendously in 16 years.
yes.
I don't think that's a terrible increase over 16 years. I don't know if the regular person looks at it that way.
And I do think, I don't know if Nicole will recollect this or not, but I do think, Chad made a point, was the property tax reduced at the time that was implemented? And I believe it was. 3%.
13.5 to
10.5, which is
11.
what,
It was about 11, it's a little over 11, and then the court passed the extension tax, and it dropped from there down to the 10.3 or.
it's 10.5 right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it was 10.3 at one time, and the compensating rate was.
Do what?
10.5.
I think at one time it was 10 too.
Yeah,
10.5.
but the compensating rate has made it go up.
And we've not gotten those numbers either yet, have we?
So we'll get them to
Yeah. And my suggestion would be that whatever that number is, that we not increase the property tax at all. The rate, the property tax rate.
So there hasn't been a property tax increase for,
Other than compensating.
Other than compensating rate, which is only like a 0.2 of a point over the last, whatever, 8 years or no. I think over the last 8 years, it has gone from like maybe 10.1 to 10.5 over the last 8 years.
And it very well could go down and still be a compensating rate.
True, that's true. The rate could go down.
It's done that before.
Yeah.
The rate is
We
actually.
just don't have that number yet.
that's not still what you like.
Sure.
The way that you calculate the property tax, you have a rate, but the rate is dependent on your revenue. So in any one year, based on your assessment, so in any one year, you can't increase your revenue by more than 4% without a hearing. So they basically look at your assessment, what the revenue's gonna look like, and back into your rate. So when you say compensating, that's why it doesn't fluctuate too much, because you're keeping your revenue level. Compensating means I'm earning $600,000 this year, I'm earning $600,000 next year. So if you have kind of growth in your community, your rate could go down and your revenue could stay level.
The bad thing about that is we get this information that you like, correct?
That's the way it's been going, yeah. So far, we can't get those assessments. But you're limited to 4%. So I was trying to think about that earlier. Your revenue, property tax cannot grow more than 4% without a special hearing, regardless of what the rate is. So if you have a lot, it might drive your rate down. You may have to have a special hearing. And that encompasses a lot of legalities to do that. So
True.
it really caps what kind of relief. Sorry.
And Scott, I'm a man believer. You would not, if I told you, you wouldn't believe how many nights that I've laid awake in bed or woke up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and this is all I'm thinking about. But when you look at what we're facing, and you truly believe it has to be done, I think we're way ahead to do what needs to happen now and be done. That's just that's my opinion. But Did I see somebody's hand back here?
I was just gonna try to make one more comment. We see what happened when the state kicked the can down the road, and the mess they're in. It's terrible. I don't know how they're gonna get away from that. We don't want to be in that position if we can help it by any means. Again, better be proactive than reactive. I'd rather make sure we're okay than all of a sudden, oh, no, now, well, we can't find it.
And we are, I mean, here's the bottom line too. We are one of the fortunate communities that could get ahead of this if we take the right steps. There will be some communities that cannot get ahead of this.
And we've heard the ones in eastern Kentucky, they shut down municipalities because they're out of money.
Yeah.
We won't be in that position.
So again, I mean, I just say, we've got to have a consensus of what the majority of this court is willing to do come Tuesday.
Are you looking for support from us, or are we just here to hear what you guys are saying?
Oh, we're not going to keep y'all from talking, but the decision will have to be made amongst these five right here.
I like the numbers you put together. I don't think it's a terrible increase. I think it's manageable. And
And honestly, I think it's one of the fairest way to do it. It's that, I mean, the elderly,
Right.
it's
You're
not going
picking on a
to,
certain
it's
entity.
not going to affect the elderly.
There's such a thing as fair tax, if it's out there.
This is it, there is.
Because we got 61% of people that work out of our 9,100 now. We've talked to the 9,000, we had a meeting last week, we got 9,100 workers in Central County. That includes Franklin. 61% don't even live in this community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if there is a fair tax, if you want to.
If there is a fair tax, this is the fairest.
It won't affect the elderly, it won't affect, that part it won't affect.
No, it does not affect the elderly.
But the
That's-
bad thing about all this is if numbers don't lie, people lie. Look, these numbers right here, these projections, that's basically on the spot, like.
Well,
But what we're proposing, if we have to project this thing out to 2028 or whatever, what we've done here today is not gonna work.
I know, but
That's really what's concerning.
well, we haven't done anything today yet, but what I'm proposing to do, at least we get ahead of it as best we can. If we do nothing
We'll make some money out of this,
If-
right here. We'll help us prepare.
on the front end, but we're not on the back end. And I say this, and so I hope the people that are watching this take this in the manner in which I mean it, because I kind of laugh when I say this, and this is really not a funny situation. But my neighbor who lives right across the road from me told me, he said, I don't like what I know you're going to have to do, but he said, if you're going to do it, he said, I'm more in favor of the occupational tax than I am any property tax increases. And here's what he told me. He said, because there are so many people that have a job that rent that does not pay a property tax bill, at least then they're helping to keep paying what we've got to do to cover the cost.
I think the bulk of the people, they've got.
But he didn't shoot at me.
There's a consensus out here that when a tax is put on, it never is taken off. Regardless of whether that tax, if this tax right here, this increase was designated for pension reform, and we keep our fingers crossed that on state level, they will find a different mechanism to try to help fund this. But the consensus is right here, okay, you guys put one on, you'll never take it off. And there's probably some truth to that.
Well,
I'm not saying this body, man, I'm just saying in the past.
yeah, and to that point, Myron, something to even think about to that point is this. It hasn't changed at all in 16 years. And then you got to think about long term. You guys be safe. You think about long term, and these guys are getting up and walking out because they got called to some type of emergency. I think about at what point do we have a discussion about manning a fire department around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I just think the big majority of people, they just want to, if there's a call for money out here, I'm not saying Central County, money just gets away. You'll find ways to spend money. I think the biggest majority of people just want to make certain that their money's spent wisely.
Yeah. And here's the
And
thing,
if we have to go this route, I don't want, you know, who knows down the road what's going to be.
Yeah.
But I know when this occupational tax was implemented in 2003, there was a windfall of money coming here, way more than fiscal court ever thought that it would get. It was almost double that amount.
yeah, I don't know, I wasn't involved then.
But I kind of kept up with it. So, and I'm not gonna say it was in part, but that tax, occupational tax was not solely implemented because didn't have anything to do with the jail and the management of the jail. Is that the state reduced sentences for inmates, which took people out of our jails, caused us to have a shortfall of revenue in our jail. So that partially implemented that. Now, if we have to do this, I want to assure the people that if something's changed around and we're starting seeing huge amounts of surplus money, we've got to have a certain amount of surplus money. The taxpayers' money should not be just put in a bank account somewhere and let it be. That's not what it's
Yeah.
about.
There should be an adequate level
Should be,
to
whatever
take
that
care, to take care of capital expenditures in emergency situations. Absolutely. And
Well,
here's,
if
and
they
here's,
generate a lot of money,
here-
then
here's,
I would be in favor of lowering property tax.
yeah, and here's the thing, Myron, we can look at all that, and I think this group of guys here would say, yeah, we get that and we're okay with that, but we don't know what'll happen 4 years from now, 8 years from now. We don't know who will be sitting here.
Have no idea.
But the point being, and I think the public does understand this, because I've done everything that I can do to make the public aware of what this pension is doing to us. It's not like that I have come here and suggested that we put this on because we have some crazy cockamamie idea that we want to work on some type of project here. I'm just looking at what these numbers are going to do to us down the road and know that if we don't get ahead of it, we're going to be in trouble.
Your budget is based on the projections that been given.
Yeah, well, let's clarify one thing. KRS 65 is not a projection, it is a legislative mandate.
Well, they're projecting out right now to 2028.
That's what the piece of legislation says.
So I hope it don't get worse, but that could change.
Yeah, because as we talked about, I know at some point we talked about this, 2 or 3 weeks ago, they've done another actuarial study where they're talking about the mortality rate of people and the retirees, and they're saying that if those numbers hold like what they are, they're looking at possibly having to make an increase to this rate or extend the period of time that we pay, just simply because people are living longer.
You don't plan.
Yes, but at least you know you're gonna get to live longer. Yeah. We just gotta know what the majority of these fiscal court members will be in agreement to do come Tuesday. So now's the time to ask a question or make your voice heard.
Well, after looking at these numbers and hearing everyone talk, on making any type of decision, you know, I feel that you have to base it off of more of a facts that you have in front of you, rather than what if. What if can get you in trouble, and what if can set you back further. You know, we can say all day long, what if the state does this? What if somebody does this? That might help us out, but what if they don't? So a lot of these numbers that's on here is pretty much facts, about as close as you can get for now. And I feel that if that's what you looking at, you have to pretty much try to go with what you got in front of you. Now, as far as 25, 26 here, say if we went with this, yeah, we'll be back in the negative. But at this point, you have to try to decide on what size of Band-Aid that you want, because all of it is just a Band-Aid fix from now until. and, because ain't nothing definite. Now, with the 3 options that the judge gave us, you got 3 different sized Band-Aids, the way I'm looking at it. Now, if we go with the occupational tax raise, that might get us to 2026. Well, that would give us more time to be able to try to come up with something else, with that vision that we talked about.
Or to twist the arm of the legislators to get something else done.
Right, that will give us more time to come up with something else, or that vision that we always talked about. You gotta have a vision to try to get to a certain point. But that would give us more if we go with the longer Band-Aid to try to fix it before 2025, 26. Or we can go with the shorter Band-Aid and have to redo something in a couple of years or so. But, you got an opportunity to get more leeway or continue doing something more often. And that's what we're going to have to look at and then base that decision off of. Because if we just stay like we are now, ain't nobody going to be good, And then we was voted in up here to make the best sound decision for our community, to look at everything across the board. Just like the judge said, personally, Jack myself, I don't want to raise anything, but if it's better for the community overall and long term, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Even at that point, it might not make everybody happy. Everybody might not be happy at that point, but maybe on down the road, they'll look back and see that that was the right decision to make.
That's a good point, Nate.
Got off quiet.
Here's the thing, hey, believe me, I know this is tough. I calculated up, because I calculated this, and I've done forgotten the numbers exactly. How many votes you cast in a given year, setting in the average number of meetings that a magistrate or a city commissioner sits in. And I forget what that number was, but it was somewhere in the 8 years that I was a city commissioner, you cast roughly 13,000 votes over those 8-year period of time. Are you going to get every one of those votes right? You're probably not. Are you going to make the best decision that you think you can make? I think you are. Are you going to have to make some really hard decisions that, just as Nate said, there's going to be some people that's not going to like what you're doing? You absolutely are. But that's why we're sitting behind this desk right now. But on the other hand of that, there's no reason we have to bring a budget ordinance to the floor Tuesday. And there's no reason to bring one if I'm just going to call it what it is. You have to know that 3 people are at least going to agree that that's what we need to do. And right now, we're at the point we've got to figure it out now.
I'm in the east, I believe. I think Marty is probably our representative. I'm for what you're trying to talk about with this occupational thing. And again, it doesn't really matter which part I'm in, because if it's the occupational, it doesn't have a boundary. Right? It's a whole. So everybody's affected. It's not like this one or that one or this one. It's spread out, probably the fairest of all options. Hopefully the public sees that and understands that. Nobody likes increases. Obviously, nobody's going to like increases.
I don't like it myself.
It doesn't matter where it comes from. It's still an increase that you're paying. But who's it affecting, and who's it affecting more, and who's it not affecting?
Right. And I will say this, I don't like it either, but I honestly could not live with myself knowing that here's what we're facing, and I've chose to do nothing.
Then why would you be here? Right? Then why are you here if you're just going to choose to kick it down the road?
On another note, the public, some of the citizens that do not understand maybe the crisis, and I think it is a crisis that we're in, we as elected officials are responsible for the money. And to me, it's kind of a slap in the face when I'm accused of going out and blowing money. Especially with drunken sailors, we don't even know what that means. But if anyone has any questions about any budget or how we spend it, it's open. Come see Nicole, come see us, and we'll give it to you and show you how we spend the money and how we're not spending the money. I mean,
I'll second that, I'll second that one, because I have been crucified over some of the stuff that we do that every agency in this town and this community benefits from with tax-free money.
And I will say this too, and hopefully he don't call me tonight to threaten me or anything, but it's just a fact. You come in and you look over the budget, and I look at what's going on, and you see these projections out over the last few years, and I mean, there's no doubt in this. I mean, I'm not telling anything that nobody don't already know that's lived in Simpson County any length of time. Jim Henderson sat here for basically the last 20 years. I don't look at this budget and say, my God, we've just been wasting money left and right. I mean, there's no way that Jim was wasting money. We're facing something that the state has dropped in our lap. Good, bad, however you feel about it, we're going to have to deal with it. So my point being, we're not in this situation because the county's just been wasting money for the last 20 years.
no, we're not.
I appreciate the money that we do have.
Yeah.
But we could be in a whole
Could
lot worse
be a lot
shape.
worse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I think our budget reflects that we don't have a lot of spending problems.
yeah.
If we did, our budget would be quite a bit more than it is right now.
Well, we'd be in trouble today.
Yeah.
We'd be in trouble today instead of a year or two
I'd
now.
say we probably got a pretty lean county.
So I go back again, I mean, it's up to you guys how long we sit in here. We just got to know what a majority of this group of people is going to do. I think I understood you.
Yes.
might as well do it. We never gonna do it any younger. I mean, I don't know, I don't know any other way to get the money. We can't cut our way out of it, we cannot cut our way out of
We
it.
can't tax our way out of this one.
You guys.
You can't cut our way out.
Cut. I don't know what else to do.
You know, it's like the fella said back there, you know, you want to do something that's going to involve everybody. You don't want to just hit one particular group of people all the time, because that's not fair. And you want to do things across the board as fair as can get. And then with the occupational tax, you know, that's, I think, pretty fair, and that's pretty much hitting everybody. Everybody is taking part of this thing. And if you take part of something, you should feel good about the end results of it, you know. And then it's like what Scott said, you know, you have to start somewhere. And this is going to be an overnight fix. This ain't going to be a yearly fix. This is going to be something that we're going to gradually work on over the next few years. You know, but you take small steps now, and you'll eventually get better. But if you don't take no steps, you won't get nowhere, or you go backwards.
Judge, may I speak? You were talking about the surplus, and I've been doing a lot of research and a lot of reading on that in terms of when you're building money and making money. And I'll tell you kind of what we're planning on doing, just as a representative of the city being here. This is going to help, because we want to bring transparency to the community just as well as you do, have everyone understand that we're trying to do the best with what we have and do the best with what we keep, you know, in terms of safeguarding the results. And one of the things that we're moving towards is looking at a resolution or an internal guideline that depicts what our goals are in terms of reserves. So there's nothing that says this body couldn't come in. For example, you know, we had some money that we wanted to designate to defeat some bonds when they became callable. So we passed a resolution, Mason, Judge Barnes did a vote on that, to commit that money. So we have several $100,000 sitting in the bank that's committed to defeat these bonds when that comes available, you know, with projected earnings and things like that. So this body could create a document that's going to say, okay, this is is our reserves, and community, this is what we're gonna do with it. We need 2 months worth of expenditures in reserves, and then anything that we build over and above that is gonna be restricted to the use of pension costs alone, at which time your expenses exceed your revenue. And that way they know that you're not just saving money and hoarding money, you're banking this to alleviate a future tax increase for 3 or 4 years down the road when this tax increase isn't enough. And so that's something that we're moving to, so that the community can see in our reserves, we don't just show, $2.2 million in reserves. It's gonna have, this is for our capital sinking fund, for our fleet maintenance program, this is for our defeasance of bonds, this is for this. So you can show that we are following the guidance of the body with the excess cash that we have. So, and that's something that you guys could do, that you could easily report monthly on and show the community, okay, we've increased our reserves by, $300,000 this year, but all of that by this body is restricted for the future need of the pension obligation. That's just an idea to help create that transparency in the.
Yeah, and I don't know if we can actually do it that way here, like the city can, but to the point that I was making that point earlier, that if that's the route we go, it's not like, oh my goodness, gosh, we've got 300,000. No, we don't. We've got this money to roll over because we know what's hitting us the next year and the year after and the year after. Any other question or comment? And I do not mean to put anybody on the spot right here, but I'll leave it at this, and I just want to make sure, because I'm telling you guys, Tuesday is it. Am I understanding that you're okay? You're okay. If there's no other question or comment, we'll dismiss this budget session. But I'll stay here. I'll stay here till bedtime if people want to talk and ask questions. Do what? You won't?
Maybe you got different bedtimes.
Then we'll dismiss the budget session.